Crackdown 3, finally here after years of development, but how does it run on older hardware? And what's your easiest way to get a consistent experience? Let's find out. Hey guys, this video is on Crackdown 3, but I'm only focusing on the single player campaign. If you would like to see a Wrecking Zone video, let me know in the comments and I can do one of those, but it'd have to be something separate. As it stands though, you can see how this is actually running right now on the old Lenovo Y50 laptop here. Not very well. As always, I have it at 1080p resolution at max settings, the extreme preset as a matter of fact. That's where I always start because that's basically worst case scenario. I know it won't run well at those settings. I just want to see exactly how hard the game hits the hardware. So this is where you start out. Low to mid 20 frame per second range, not great. In fact, I believe if the game gets below 30 frames per second, it actually slows down. So we're actually playing kind of in slow motion. Now I'm just driving around the world here. I'm not in combat or anything. If you do get in combat, then I'm sure the frame rate drops even further. But as it stands, it's still not a great experience. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the settings here. And first thing I want to do is I want to see if it's even possible, even feasible, even a pipe dream, say, to be able to hit 60 frames per second with this hardware. So to do that, I'm actually going to knock everything down as low as it'll possibly go. And I'm going to use the low quality preset here. You can see there are a lot of options that you can actually tweak in this game, which is very nice. I'm probably going to be sticking mostly to presets here, though, because this many options is overwhelming. And you could spend all day tweaking little things here and there and getting 1 or 2 frames out of them. But for the most part, I think the presets will do us pretty well and get us at least a good starting point to where we go, and then we can from there tweak it with the fine-tuning of these settings. But like I said, for now I'm actually going to go to the low preset. As well, you can go into the display settings here, and then there's a resolution scale option. As always, I have VSync on. I believe this is triple buffered. It has to be, actually, because it's in a borderless window. So it's triple buffered VSync, which means it should not lock our frame rate to 60 or 30 or 20 or any hertz refresh rate. It should show us an uncapped frame rate. So that's why I have it unlocked. If you want, obviously you can turn on a frame limiter inside the game itself, but I typically don't use those. They tend to not be very stable or good on their own. They introduce some judder. But if you look here, you can actually scale the resolution. Typically, they end around 720p is pretty much the lowest you can go. But in this game, you can actually go all the way down to 902 by 507. So I'm actually going to go as low as possible. Like I said, I want to see if it's even feasible to hit 60 FPS at the lowest possible settings in this game. So let's see. Okay, this is the lowest possible settings, and it's really close, but it looks like the answer is no. This is definitely not how we want to play the game, so even if it were at 60 steadily, you probably would not still want to play this. It's pretty ugly. It's really blurry. We're right around SD resolution right now instead of HD, so I'm actually going to kind of take that as a sign and say we're probably going to have to just lock this down at 30 as we have in the past couple of games and settle for high quality visuals, as high as the quality of the visuals can look in this game, and decently high resolution. Not 1080p, because I think 1080p is a little taxing on this GPU, but we can try it. Let's go to ultra settings, ultra preset rather, and let's go back up to 1080p. You can actually scale it up to 4K if you want. I wouldn't recommend that, but you know, it's up to you. Okay, so let's go to 1920 by 1080. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Almost there. Almost there. There we go. Okay, 1920 by 1080. Now we're at the ultra preset. We started out at the extreme preset and we were getting low 20s. Looks like ultra doesn't really improve much. So let me see. Let me set a waypoint here. We'll go into some combat and actually test this out a little bit. Let's see. Let's go down here since I have a survival chance. A higher chance of survival down there. Okay, so let's see. Still around 25 FPS, not ideal. So let's hop back into the settings here. Let's go back down to let's see. If we go to high, maybe. Let's see what we gain out of that, if anything. Okay. Yeah, we're closer to 30. We're actually over 30 right at this second, but I feel like it's going to go back below 30 as soon as we get around this truck or van. No? Okay. So what are we at? 35, 36? Typically, when we're aiming for 30 FPS, we want to aim between 33 and 35 FPS on average, because once you lock it down to 30, that means it won't drop below. You'll have a nice stable frame rate. Oh, let's not die. Okay.
You're taking damage.
No. Alright. Watch out. I'm terrible at this game, by the way. Can't figure it out.
Lock up those harvesters. Jam them good.
Ooh, okay. That didn't work like I'd hoped. So where are we still? We're like mid to upper 30s. Not bad. We're at the high preset? Is that right? Let's double check that. I feel like I went to medium or something, but is this really high? Yeah, everything's at high. That's not bad, actually. And we are still at 1080p, so that may be doable, to be honest. Yeah, 1920 by 1080. Now, of course, if you really do want to like jack everything up to ultra, I actually want to do this because I prefer 16x, but that's up to you as well. Also, the anti-aliasing in this game can be a tad aggressive. You may want to consider like upping the sharpening just to bring back some of that detail that's lost, but that's up to you as well. It's all personal preference. But let's see here. Let's go to...
Try throwing something in. That should cause more damage.
What's he talking about? Let's see what I can do here. Uh-oh. I don't think I want to be over here. I think I'm getting poisoned. Not really paying attention. I'm looking up at the frame rate. Alright, so we're at, yeah. We're still in the 30s here, so it looks actually pretty good. So one of the options you can actually do, you can see with the explosions and stuff, it might drop below 30. Not sure what you could do about that, to be honest. But if you want the settings a little bit higher, obviously you can mess around with them individually in the menu. Typically the biggest hitters when it comes to frame rate are shadows, volumetric settings. There's anti-aliasing. I don't think that would be too much of a hit. But yeah, like shadow quality would probably be a nice gain if you drop that a little bit. But then maybe not, I don't know. Some games aren't that big of a deal whenever you drop the shadow quality, but typically when you go from like an ultra setting to a high setting, you'll see like a decent gain when it comes to shadow settings. But then from high to low, you won't. So That may be the case in this game. But yeah, then you may want to mess around with, let's see what else we have here. Do we have maybe an occlusion, anything like that? There's the post-process, which would include ambient occlusion, but yeah, ambient occlusion here. I mean, you can turn it off completely. It would probably be really ugly, though. But like, if we turn that off completely, do we gain much? No, not really. We're up to, you know, upper 30s and 40 FPS instead of mid 30s. So we didn't really gain too much. But it looks like you could start with the high preset at 1080p and actually get a pretty good experience. I'm gonna go back to the high preset here. Now again, if you want to bump it up to ultra, there you have a couple of options. You can see that drops the frame rate pretty heavily. So I'm guessing ultra turns on a couple of settings that are really taxing. I feel like shadows may be one of those. Let's go through. Let's try knocking down ambient occlusion and shadows and see what kind of hit that has. So let's see. Oh, I bet you screen space reflections does too. And real-time GI probably helps if you turn that down. So let's try ambient occlusion and shadow first. So let's see what that gives us. We went from mid 20s to upper 20s, mid to upper 20s, so 3 or 4 frames per second. Okay, which is not bad. It's, what is that, about 10%, a little more performance gain. Okay, so let's go back. So let's try turning down real-time GI quality. See what that gives us.
Watch the enemy fire.
Yeah, not much difference there. So that's good. I would actually probably leave that at ultra if you're wanting the image quality. Again, you've seen you can just put it on high and you'll probably be fine. But because it doesn't give you much performance gain, you might as well just leave it at ultra. Let's see. Let's knock that down to high. Let's see what that gives us. Yeah, not much again. Stuck around 25, upper 20s. So if you want it at ultra instead of high, your options really are to either drop the resolution, and you don't have to go all the way down to 1600 by 900. I tend to, because it's in my head I know a 16 by 9 resolution, and it's in other games a good place to start because that seems to be the sweet spot for this GPU. But I mean, you can drop it, you know, 10% on the resolution scale, which is not a perfect 1600 by 900. That's 972p, and then from there you can back out and see how your frame rate is. And you can see we're right around 30 FPS there. And that's mostly ultra. What did I have? 3 settings at high? Or did I actually go back to the ultra preset? Let's see. Let's go back to the ultra preset. Let's do that there. And yeah, so we're right around 30 FPS. So if we drop it down again further to 900p, let's just try that because it's only 7% more of a drop. Let's go back, see what that gives us. Yeah, it's right around there. It's right around 30, 33. Yeah, that's close to where we want it. It's still not really where we want it. So from there, you may want to consider tweaking a few more settings, but then you play mostly at ultra and high, a mix of the two, and then you can of course lock it down at 30 FPS. And the other option you have, I always recommend using this program, Rivatuner Statistics Server, part of MSI Afterburner. It's free. And you can go in, you can create a profile. What you do is you just hold Control, click on Add, and it'll show you the process is currently running. And those, you can see I'm using DS4 Windows, but then you uncheck those and just leave Crackdown 3 exe checked. Then it'll add it to this list right here. Then you go over here to frame rate limit, and then you just type 30, enter, and then go back to the game. And you can see, as always, if you look up to the upper left here, you can see how this mess over here becomes a nice flat line for the most part. And that's what we're wanting, is consistency. So, now that we have a consistent frame rate cap, barring loading hitches, we're going to aim to keep that frame rate caps, and hopefully it doesn't go below it too often. So again, we're at 900p. And we are not using a FPS limit in-game. We're using Rivet Tuner for that. And our graphics settings so far, we're just using the Ultra preset. And it looks pretty stable, to be honest with you. But again, if you want to, you don't have to worry about messing with that resolution slider at all. That's something that I like to do, because then I know it's going to be a consistent look throughout. But there is this option. There's also a great performance display in here, by the way. You can either do frames per second. Detailed is awesome. It actually shows you all kinds of information over there on the right side. More than you know what to do with, trust me. It tells you everything going on right there. But yeah, it tells you your RAM usage, your build of Windows 10, all kinds of stuff. So you can see I'm only using 1.5 gigs of VRAM right now. So the game's not that demanding. I'm using 6 gigs of system RAM. So that's cool. That's there for your usage if you want to get really into it. But I just need what I have up there in the upper left. So I'm going to turn this back off. I'm going to go back. I was going to show you this. You can actually turn on dynamic resolution, and then you can choose how aggressive it is. So if you don't mind it going down up to 50% on either axis, then, and typically I believe it scales both axes at the same time at the same rate. So it'll scale up to 50% both horizontally and vertically, which won't look great, but it'll maintain your frame rate for sure. So we're at 1600 by 900, but with the dynamic resolution on, we can go back up to 1080p. And if we want, we can just leave it there, because then the dynamic resolution will kick in and it will figure out what it needs to drop to itself in order to maintain your frame rate. So you can see we're at 30 FPS, barring loading hitches again. Who's shooting at me?
These harvesters can only chew so much. Choke them up, Agent.
So yeah, looks like we're pretty consistent here. Again, I had it at the Ultra preset, and I have it at 1080p with dynamic resolution on. You can see it's scaling down, and it's probably around 900p, if a little lower, because when we had it at 900p, it was pretty consistent at the Ultra preset, barring a couple of settings. So for the easiest solution, if you're playing at 30 FPS, if you don't mind a variable frame rate, then by all means, go for it, man. Leave it unlocked and just have fun. But if you want a consistent experience, the easiest option on the Lenovo Y50 laptop here is to go into the options, set it to 1080p, hit the Ultra preset, turn on dynamic resolution up to 50% all the way, and just set a limiter, frame rate limit in Rivet Tuner to 30 FPS. And you're gold. It should be good. Thanks for watching. I'm going to go ahead and just play around a little bit and play out this video, but leave a comment below if you liked the video. Let me know what you think of it. If you'd like me to cover any games in the future, just to help you get an idea of what you can expect on your hardware. and how modern games scale to older stuff.
That's it.
Also, don't hesitate to leave any recommendations for what you'd like to see on my channel. That would be cool too. I'm always looking for ideas and always looking to branch out and try something new. So, until next time.
I've got to say, the more I play with your crime map, the more I like it. It isn't just a fancy view of the world. It lets us track enemy assets, connected targets, and anything we can use to weaken them. It's one hell of a handy tool.
The field's valve is good to go. Take it out.